Hello, and welcome to Third Thursday at Hoover's, and thank you for joining us this evening. I'm Jerry Fleagle, President and CEO at the Hoover Presidential Foundation. Before I start this program, I'd like to share some upcoming events with you. Friday and Saturday, August 5th and 6th, is our annual Hoover's Hometown Day celebration, and the foundation is hosting free admission to the Hoover Presidential Library. Saturday, it will happen. There'll be two interesting programs. Members of the foundation are also invited free of charge to a members picnic on the lawn near the Hoover Birthplace Cottage at 11:30 on Saturday the 6th. The public is invited as well for $10. And I think you might really enjoy the events immediately following the picnic. First, a Hoover Life celebration where we'll have the curator of the current temporary exhibit about the Russian famine, Bertrand Potnod, speak about his findings in the exhibit he created about this moment in history 100 years ago. There is no fee to attend the life celebration. Just come on in and find a seat. Following that, at 2 p.m., we are hosting a Hoover Forum with 4 authors and historians who will discuss the America's famine relief mission in Soviet Russia. Bert will be joined by Hoover biographer George Nash, along with Charlie Latterman and Olga Ovechorowski, who will also explore different aspects of Hoover's major humanitarian relief efforts. And of course, C-SPAN will also be on the site to record the event for later broadcast. And of course, there's lots of other things to see and do during Hoover's Hometown Days, including free pony rides and inflatables for the kids, music venues all over town, a beer tent, games, and of course, the Hoover Ball National Championships. So I hope you'll come and visit us that weekend and bring along the entire family. Hopefully you've heard something about our biggest news. We'll be hosting President George W. Bush at our annual celebration banquet on October 7th in Cedar Rapids. We'll begin offering individual tickets at our office in the Rummel Center in West Branch on Saturday, August 6th during Hometown Days, and then online beginning the 8th. A few table sponsorships are still available if you would like to bring a group or promote your business. If you're interested in attending this special event, please visit our website, hooverpresidentialfoundation.org, and scroll down the home page to find the banquet links. I'm sure you'll find us and join it. I hope you will join us this fall. Also on our website, you can learn about a major fundraising campaign for the renovation of the Hoover Presidential Library and Museum and Exhibit Space. It's been 30 years since the last renovation, and we're excited about bringing new technology and other updates into the museum. We have a special benefit for Iowa taxpayers who contribute to the Timeless Values campaign, where you can earn a 25% Iowa state tax credit for a gift of any size, no matter how much the gift is. And tonight, I'm pleased to welcome both Matt Solari and Kat Reinbold from BRC Imagination Arts in Burbank, California. Kat is creative producer and Matt is the VP and creative director at BRC. And I've had the opportunity to meet them about 2.5 years ago and just really enjoyed it. They're very bright, energetic, and are going to really put a stamp on the Hoover campus. We've tasked them to create a new Hoover Museum experience for us, updating a 30-year-old exhibit, and we're giving them a clean slate to start with, down to the wall studs. So welcome to you both. It's great to see you again. So let's talk about how this process is going to work, Matt and Kat.
Sure. Good to see you again, Jerry.
Yeah, good to see you.
So do you want us to dive in? I think we'll take you, I'll walk through kind of the process and the vision as it's unfolding.
Yes.
We had a lot of fun doing this, putting together this concept when Kat and I, and we represent actually a very large team of storytellers and designers at BRC Imagination Arts who came together to help re-envision the project with a group of people from the foundation, the museum, from NARA, from the community, scholars,
local educators.
Yeah, so we really brought together a great cross-disciplinary group of people to reimagine what this library museum can be, and to bring it into modern storytelling techniques techniques and up to modern standards. So one of the things that I think we really had the best time with is, like most guests who are going to come to this refurbished museum, is kind of discovering Herbert Hoover for the first time. There's a little bit we knew about him from history books and from popular culture, but it doesn't even hit the tip of the iceberg. And I think at the end of the day, what we walked away with was this profound sense of pride, I think, in the work that he did, both as a citizen, an entrepreneur, and as president, on behalf of the country, kind of living up to the ideals that we all aspire our leaders to be. So it was such a joy to uncover his story, and then as your storytellers to figure out how to translate that into an experience that you're all going to get to enjoy when the doors open on the new experience. So with that, Kat, shall we dive through? And
let's go ahead. All
right, we're going to share our screen and walk you through a very high level sort of concept. So this is the storytelling aspect. You're not going to see architecture. You're not going to see lots of fancy,
equipment lists or electrical plans, which maybe are not as exciting really to you as they might be to us. So we're going to take you through the storytelling, how things will look and feel. We'll tell you a little bit about how things might sound, what you might see, feel, do, and touch.
All right. So let's walk you through this. So one of the more exciting things here is that this is an experience that we're designing so guests can take it home with them. It's an emotional experience that tells the epic story of Herbert and Lou Hoover and how they use their lives to make the lives of people around the world better, and committed to that sense of public service.
And we very much wanted, when we were working as a group, to help to use the Hoovers' story to empower and inspire other people to continue the good work that they were doing in the world and in their local communities.
Yeah. So education through entertainment. One of the things that BRC is known for is the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum that opened up in Springfield, Illinois. And that was really a breakthrough museum experience that uses, immersion and theatrical techniques and seamless technology to really bring the story to life around people. So it's a little bit of a different approach than, I would say, a typical museum where you're going to go in and kind of read things on a graphic. And yeah, there'll be some of that, certainly for people who want to dive into that. But really, it's about bringing the stories to life around you and immersing you in his world.
Dropping you into the Hoovers' lives so that you feel like you're experiencing it alongside them, and then giving everyone opportunity to take deep dives or to get the basic story on a walkthrough as they're just immersing themselves in it. So we really wanted different opportunities for different learning types.
Right. So, and we've taken our cue from this great quote by Plutarch that the mind is a vessel to be filled, and it's not a vessel to be filled, but a fire to be kindled. We want to light that fire, and everybody that comes through to have an interest like we have to learn more and to really dive into the life and times and accomplishments of Herbert and Lou Hoover. So to do that, we're going to take guests on a transformative emotional journey. And now the way we think about this, and we set out with the team that was assembled to start envisioning this project, we said, how do we want the audience that comes through this to be different after a visit to the museum? And we really kind of worked through that with them. And Kat just kind of said right now too, at the end of the day, they want people to walk out right here to emerge empowered to lead an uncommon life, to be committed to taking action in creating positive change through individual enterprise and initiative in service to humanity.
It's certainly something that our team, not just the BRC team, but the entire team with whom we were working, has consistently felt inspired by the way that the Hoovers worked together as a team and husband and wife, and that they brought other people into their lives. And through their commitment to creating positive change, incredible things happen on a large scale, as we all know, but also on a small scale in everyday life. And so we want people to take away that notion that they have the power and the capability to do that same thing in their own communities.
It's so Hoover. I mean, in listening to the media that was playing before we started, it just reminds me so much of this is really on theme and on brand for Herbert and Lou Hoover, who had dedicated their lives to public service. And they wanted to be able to, free people to use their own enterprise and initiative to make their lives what they wanted them to be. And
I think that really was the guiding star that led us to creating a theme statement for the experience too, which was lead an uncommon life, serve, lead, make a difference. So again, for us, we wanted people to take a very core message away from the storytelling in the museum. And this theme statement is that notion of what's the red thread that connects the entire experience and helps us to decide what stories to tell and to focus on in the main experience, and what stories might then go into a flexible rotating exhibit gallery too, so that we can highlight things there. But we always want this evergreen core story that really gets that message through to people.
So we take all these ingredients and we put this together into an experience that, when you go to some presidential library museums, they do a very light look at the early life of the president and the post-presidency, and really focus on their term as president. But here, Herbert Hoover was such a truly different type of person that entered the Oval Office. His entire life is, in many ways, more impactful. His time as a private citizen, and what he did to save people during World War I and World War II.
Yeah.
That we're going to look at his entire life, because it all fits together.
Our team really felt it was doing both he and Lou a disservice to only look at a 4-year period, when that 4-year period was so much informed by what came before and after. And the fact that, again, then we could learn to see Hoover as someone who never stopped working and trying, even when things got the toughest during his presidency. But if you don't have the chance to understand that the work that he was doing before his presidency and what he continued doing afterwards, then you just don't have the impact in that 4-year period.
Correct. And so this represents here, we've created this sort of emotional journey that takes you, like as if you were going through a movie or a book or a play, through the emotional highs and lows of their life and their experiences and things that propelled them and motivated them throughout their journey. So let's take a look at what the new experience is, how it's going to unfold. So you're going to come in and we're going to enter our introductory theater. And this, we're envisioning, it's called 31. And it's kind of like the trailer. This is a high-paced snapshot that really gets your heart pumping and takes you on a brisk, 10-minute trailer through the life of Herbert Hoover and his life and times.
It's really meant to whet your appetite and encourage every guest to start asking some questions about Hoover. For example, do I really know who Hubert Hoover is? Are the assumptions that I always had, is there more to his story than I had thought before? And we want guests to sort of open their mind, start asking questions, and then we'll plunge them into the experience.
All right. So now that we've got everybody's interest peaked, we take them through the experience. Now we've divided his story and Lou's story into two major parts. There's a life of adventure is the first part. And that comprises of starting off in his life in West Branch. So Gallery 1 is, about his life of adventure before he becomes involved in politics. And this takes from the moment in West Branch, his early childhood here. We're here at the site, of course, where he was born and raised and then was orphaned before he was sent off to California. And so what happens is we take you through a series of sort of immersive moments that take you from the early Hoover home to Hoover, being sent off to California to live with an uncle and aunt, and and to basically start to fend for himself and work his way through life with a little bit of support from his uncle and aunt, but really learning how to stand on his own.
Yeah, getting into college, meeting Lou Hoover for the first time, and sort of the interesting courtship that they had, which leads us to him taking off for Australia without them getting married yet. And so then we plunge guests into this atmosphere of what it was really like for Hoover in Australia, because this is where he was sort of forged in fire. He learned what he was amazingly good at, which was fixing problems and making sick minds better. So he earns the title, the Doctor of Sick Minds. But he also learns that maybe Australia is not his dream job, and that he would actually really like to marry Lou. He's missing her quite a lot. Mm-hmm. And so he figures, well, he'll head back home and he'll see if he can make that happen.
Right. So he sends Lou a letter basically proposing via mail, and she says yes. So on his way to his next assignment in China, he stops back off in the United States, marries Lou.
And then they're on a train and
couple of days later, on their way to China. Mm-hmm. So this basically it's a whirlwind experience that culminates with, we have this area called Life on the Jump. And for the longest time in this area, we talk about how they spent the better part of their lives as individuals and also new parents. Now imagine this is part of the story we tell here. This is at a time when global travel was incredibly hard and difficult. And then we have these two people here who are excited about and carrying two young kids with them as well. Mm-hmm. So all this story comes out here, and the places that they visited around the world, the objects that they've collected, the gifts that they received along the way, and really how the world starts to open up, and what the world was like at that time. Mm-hmm. So this is sort of the place where we can examine their adventures as Herbert becomes the Doctor of Sick Minds, and now he becomes the great engineer who is rising up in the ranks and becoming extremely successful, one of the most successful men in his field in the world.
And we get a peek into their family life, as Matt said. The other thing that really comes to light in this section is how Bert and Lou are this incredible team. They both have strengths that they use to play together and play off of one another, which culminates in them deciding to translate this text together, De Re Metallica, and give this back as kind of a gift to the world, since there's not really a solid mining textbook that they found that's as useful as this medieval text that they came across during their travels in Europe.
So this is a book that they worked on together, and resulted in them both receiving the highest honor from the Mining and Metallurgical Society. I'm going to mess that up, but which was pretty remarkable for the day. I mean, especially for a woman to receive that honor, and she received it alongside Herbert Hoover. And this book that they translated is
still used today.
A
lot of schools of mines and technology.
So this is sort of like we are now at this moment here. This is the end of our Life of Adventure section. This is the culmination of their professional. They're at the pinnacle of their professional powers and careers right now. And the world is, unbeknownst to them, at this moment, they're living in London. That's where their base of operation is. And at this moment, the world around them is about to change in ways that nobody could imagine. And this last moment here is sort of a representation of the Red House that they lived in London. And here we start to see both snapshots of their life as a family, but also the beginnings of World War I.
This is also, for us, we envision this as one of the really special magical spaces in the museum, because you'll literally be surrounded by these moments of family life. So you can explore these storied artifacts like the De Re Metallica, some of the notes and the translation elements as if they had, just been working and left the room. And then things like the mirror above the fireplace, every once in a while, will come to life with a memory of a story that's happened in the room. So it's as if we're in the room surrounded by a place that has memories of the Hoovers as they lived. As we go near a window, we might hear some echoes of conversation or the traffic outside in London. So we very much feel as if we are living within that past moment.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite places in the museum, because I think it really blends that family life, I mean, reading the correspondence that they have with their children, they were such devoted parents, and in their private lives, there's this incredible warmth that they have for their kids that really comes across in their letters and for each other. And so this is the place where we can start to bring out that personal side that so many people don't know and don't experience about the Hoovers. So then we go into our next gallery. This is the major gallery called A Life of Service. So if we were tasked with writing the story of Herbert and Lou Hoover from scratch, as if they never lived, nobody would believe the story that we would write. So fortunately, they did live this life. It is a life that is epic and beautifully suited.
And fortunately, George Nash did it for us.
Yes.
Thanks, George.
Thank you, George. So at this moment, as storytellers, it's the perfect break because the Archduke Ferdinand has been assassinated. Europe is now being plunged into a world war, and it also will change. It will change the lives of everyone practically on the planet, and the Hoovers are no exception.
And it will put the Hoovers in a position where they are asked to make a choice that will impact the rest of their lives.
So what happens is, as Europe is plunged into the war, we take you. As the visitor to this museum, the first thing you're going to see is you're going to be plunged into the chaos of the outbreak of World War I. And as we take you through that, these are all the things that Herbert Hoover is soaking up as well. And what he begins to understand is that many of you already probably know the story, is that he receives word that the Belgians are kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and they're in imminent danger of millions of Belgians starving to death. So at this moment, Hoover, who was looking for a greater purpose in his life, said
he spent a sleepless night after he had heard story after story of what was happening. And then the story is that he came down the next morning and he basically said, to hell with the fortune. What does it matter if all of these people are dying? And he decided at that moment that everything that he had would be committed to saving the lives of the Belgians.
So he and Lou all went into action as private citizens and started using their money, soliciting their friends and colleagues and people for money to help the relief efforts. And it was a gargantuan effort. And the work that they did together was so unheard of in the world, like probably one of the first examples of a non-governmental organization and a type of relief effort that had never been done before, that it was dubbed the eighth wonder of the world. So Hoover's powers of organization and marshaling people and his energy.
And his ability to see how to fix a large scale problem.
Right. So we bring you into the story here. And then that leads you as we come out of World War I, and Hoover's skills are absolutely recognized by presidents in Washington. So he's made Secretary of Commerce under Harding and Wilson, which seemed at the time, it was a very, very minor cabinet position. But of course, Herbert Hoover, the story you will discover here is that he basically uses this as a platform to transform basically American society in ways that are almost hard for us to understand today.
Because we take it so much for granted.
And that's the story that we will bring out here. So, what we learn here is that Hoover, champions the idea of standardization and how that brings about prosperity and unleashes opportunities for people. And then as he starts to polish his philosophy about what we call American individualism. And it's a philosophy that to him represents a third alternative that marries the creative ambition of American enterprise with the responsibility to be of service to their communities and fellow man. So this is something he starts to articulate and put out there in the world. And meanwhile, Lou at the time is also doing her work in strengthening the Girl Scouts of America to bring opportunity to young women around the nation, and really starts in her way changing the role and view of women at that time.
As a lifetime Girl Scout and a leader, I was so excited to hear this story because I'd always heard about Daisy Gordon Lowe, but I'd never heard about all of the things that Lou Hoover had done. So it was a fantastic thing to be able to start sharing with more scouts too.
Yeah, and also at the culmination of this period again, there's the Great Mississippi Flood of 1927. Herbert Hoover is called into service. He brings his world-class humanitarian efforts to alleviating the suffering around the flood. He is dubbed the Master of Emergencies. And by the end of this, he was probably one of the most famous people in the world. And he was everybody's logical choice, including the Democrats, as the person to put on the ticket for president. And that propels him into the White House.
I mean, he could have just run on all of his cool nicknames, right? The Doctor of Sick Minds, the Eighth Wonder of the World, the Master of Emergencies, but might as well add president to that as well.
So now, then we take you now, what we're going to do at the museum is we are going to spend some time here to unpack what Herbert Hoover called a war on 1,000 fronts. So there's a lot of, I think, probably misconceptions about the Depression itself. I mean, here we are, nearly 100 years from the Depression, the start of the Depression, and scholars are still searching to figure out exactly why things happened and what caused it. And there's a lot of scholarship that's been done. So we want to bring that scholarship into the storytelling because it's such a complex issue and we don't want to overcomplicate it, but we want to show how even the greatest minds and talents of the day were having challenged with trying to figure this out as it's happening. So it's like trying to ride a bicycle while you're building it in the simplest of terms.
Yeah, we're really interested in having guests have that active conversation alongside us as they start to see all of the different pieces of information. So especially seeing what Hoover and his cabinet and his companions saw at the time, some of the information that we know now, and then start to really unpack it and have a conversation about it. That's part of the notion of learning and sparking interest and making sure that the conversation and the interest continues past the visit.
So we do this in a couple of ways. So first, we have a space here that's sort of it's a deconstructed version of the Oval Office, and in this central space, you are surrounded. We're immersing you in sort of this war on 1,000 fronts, emotion, and the panics on Wall Street, the poverty, the confusion, and it's really bringing the social aspects of what was happening to life around you. And then the room just sort of begins to transform as you're being immersed in the story of the Depression. Around the perimeters of the space is where we have our deep dive exhibits on diving further into the causes of the Great Depression, some of the things that Hoover was also working on as president, because it wasn't the only thing that he was doing. It certainly overshadowed everything, but there was still a lot of other things that he was trying to accomplish as president, and all that stuff is talked about here as well.
Yeah, and also taking a look at what Lou was doing too as the first lady, because she had a very significant career as first lady too. So we don't, we want to show their consistent partnership and bring her story to the forefront too, alongside his.
Correct, and she also represented a significant change in the role of First Lady from what was, traditionally more of a ceremonial role or a hospitality role to she actually started to see it as an activist role where she could take her causes and use the platform as a way to, bring attention to those, which of course was a precursor to the work that Eleanor Roosevelt would do as the next First Lady and so on. So, I think of all people, Lou is probably the most unknown figure that people will be surprised about. And then we are starting to wrap out our story with Herbert and Lou Hoover here. So he, of course, loses in a landslide and kind of, goes back into public life. And here we walk you through how he spends his time sort of fighting to regain, as he sees it, the historic meaning of liberalism, and becomes part of the new conservatism movement that it was emerging as a crusade against what he called collectivism. and is an antidote to the New Deal. So it's interesting because Roosevelt, took over the presidency, it almost became a way for Hoover as well to sharpen his philosophy about America and conservatism and its role in society. So, but then he's brought back into service. When President Truman, when Truman becomes president, he invites Hoover back into American government as part of the Famine Emergency Committee that heads out to Europe again during World War II there. He's brought in to work on the Commission on Organization of the U.S. Executive Branch for both Truman and Eisenhower. He becomes, a man who never stops his life of service. After a long marriage, Lou passes away. We have a wonderful tribute here to her. And one of my favorite stories here is the discovery that they made after Lou had passed away, and they're going through her desk and they discover all these letters from people that over the years that she had given money to, had written to her for assistance, and she would give them money and they would pay her back, and she would never cash the checks. So what they find is all these uncashed checks, in her desk, which I think is a wonderful.
I think it's one of the most characteristic things that speaks to her as a person, that she never said no when people asked her for help, and she never expected it to be repaid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then it brings us again to, the end of our story. And then at the age of 90 years old, Herbert Hoover departs as well. And then we have our final gallery, which is a collection. It's sort of the legacy gallery. We're calling it Look Forward with Unbounded Hope, which was a quote from Hoover himself. And this is where we explore his legacy. And here we look at the Hoover Institution on War, Revolution, and Peace. The Hoover Dam, which, its creation helped the population, the building of the American Southwest become possible. The impact that his standards and regulations had on the world that we live in today. The millions of lives that were saved because of his work as humanitarian.
Including those stories that are continuing to come to light. Often we've heard from Jerry and everyone at the foundation too, how they continue to get letters, visitors who tell stories about how they owe their lives and their grandparents and their great-grandparents' lives to Hoover.
Yeah. And then finally, a place we call Uncommon Lives. And this is an invitation to everyone that comes through as everyday citizens to make an impact in their community. And this is a place where those stories are told and those people are honored. So it really, I think, is a beautiful call to action that comes out of the life and times of Herbert Hoover. And that basically brings us to the vision that you will experience for the revitalized Herbert Hoover Presidential Library Museum. Mm-hmm. So with that, Jerry, we're going to turn it back over to you.
Kat and Matt, again, thank you so much. And I hope our people watching have got a little bit of a flavor as far as what we're looking at and what you're doing on there. So one thing I forgot to mention up front with everybody is if you'd like to have questions, please feel free to enter them in the Q&A tab there along the screen. And we'll go ahead and I'll make sure I ask Matt and Kat those questions. So I got a few just to kind of get the ball rolling on there. So, I don't think either one of you really, when we approached BRC as far as if you'd be interested in this project, about if you knew that much about Herbert Hoover, and tell us what your impressions were, one, when we called you and said, would you be interested, and then two, what you found out.
You want to take it first?
I have to say, Jerry, as you know, I was very excited because I'm from South Dakota, and we so rarely have an opportunity as an agency centered in Los Angeles to work in the Midwest. And so for me, it was one of those fantastic opportunities to take what I do and give back to the area of the country that I'm from. And so I had known that Herbert Hoover was from Iowa, and that frankly, his story doesn't really get told. I didn't know much about what the story was, but I remembered that it was such a tiny part in the history books that someone from the Midwest would have that work ethic that I love so much, from a part of the country that I love so much. There must be more to the story. And so Matt can confirm that I definitely came and I said I have to be part of this project.
That was her first reaction as a Midwesterner. She was most excited about that aspect of it. Yeah, yeah. And for me, I mean, I'll be honest. I'm probably like most people who are not from Iowa, who will go through, maybe drive by on the highway and notice there's a presidential museum there for Herbert Hoover. And the first two things I thought of were, oh, the Great Depression and the song from Annie. We'd like to thank you, Herbert Hoover, and Hoover, you know, Hoovervilles.
Mhm.
So, I mean, I'm embarrassed to say that was my, you know, my only real recollection of what I knew of him. And what I came to realize was it's the smallest of the presidential libraries, but his story is probably among the biggest, which is amazing to think about, you know, how much life and service that he did and story we will have to fold into its modest footprint. But the thing is, which is appropriate though, is I also realize too, is that it is appropriate for Hoover that it is where it is, that it's not some monument to, you know.
He wouldn't want a monolithic
No.
museum. I think he would be embarrassed.
He would be.
To have that be made all for him.
Yeah, because it's really about, it's in a sense, it's like inviting people into a home. You know, it's a warm Midwestern welcome, and I think that's so appropriate.
Well, and you mentioned, what did you view as maybe the biggest challenge for this project once you started getting into it, or as we get ready to undertake it and try and get this thing completed?
We can finish each other's thoughts. So go ahead.
You know
Pat.
this, Jerry.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest thing for us is there was so many parts of the stories to tell, and just choosing all of them, because also our theme statement, which was our guiding North Star, almost every point in Hoover's life fits the theme statement. And so really we had to start thinking about what we wanted people to take away from it. And then also really thinking about featuring those moments that were the Hoovers, because through our research, what we found is they were such a team. It was Bert and Lou, and they both had individual interests and activities, but they were always coming back together and working towards the same goal. And so for us, that started to really be another guiding star, is them as a team and how they worked together, because we felt like that was really inspirational too, to show people when you work together, you really can achieve these incredible things.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, tell us a little bit about how you approach technology when you're going to do this museum renovation on that.
Well, for us, I'll tell you this story, a quick story. Our founder, Bob Rogers, who founded BRC, started off as a magician in the magic shop on Disneyland's Main Street in California. So as a lover of magic, he sort of infused that into BRC, right, as some of the things that we're really known for. Mm-hmm. And so for any true magician, the idea is that you want all the magic to be hidden, right? And it's really about creating that sense of wonder and bringing that emotion to people, so that they're focused on that as opposed to the actual trick. So for us, technology is going to make it possible to immerse you in the story, to surprise you and to delight you. But at the end of the day, our goal is to make sure that that's all hidden, so that the experience is what stands out for you. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of our philosophy.
Yeah, at the end of the day, our goal is, if you went through and never noticed that there was technology because it was so well integrated in the story experience, we would consider that a victory. Technology is invisible. It also serves, in a lot of cases too, to offer additional opportunities to deep dive on things too.
Exactly.
Okay, well, great. Well, Nancy has asked a question. She goes, what is your target date in getting this vision finished?
Well, I guess we can say we're looking at his birthday, right?
150th birthday.
Right around the corner.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, there is nothing like an anniversary to galvanize people and get them focused on something. And I think frankly, Hoover probably would have looked at that too and said, this is the date, this is the target, let's make it happen. So I'm going to make the pitch here and say, let's make that date happen. So everybody that's listening on here, dig in and make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give you a forewarning. Tom Schwartz is listening, so.
Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Okay, well, one thing I would do for people, if you hadn't had the opportunity to go see the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library and Museum, is I certainly encourage it. One is it's a great story, as everybody would probably know by now. But the way that BRC Imagination Arts set up the museum and tells the story, it is just terrific. In fact, I've had the opportunity to be at about every National Archives Presidential Library and Museum except for one, and that's Jimmy Carter down in Georgia. And Lincoln is technically, they're not one of the NARA library museums, but I still think they do the best job with the Presidential Museum because you all have done such a terrific story of telling the story on there. So, we won't have the holographic image of Abraham Lincoln in ours, but I have full confidence that you're going to do a great job telling the story. So.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, we would be just, our goal is that after you spend an hour and a half, 2 hours there, you walk out feeling like Herbert and Lou Hoover in a real direct personal way. Not that they're some distant historic figure, but that they're present with you.
We may not have the hologram, but you're going to have plenty of other ways to engage with Bert and Lou.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that is terrific. Well, and I don't have any other questions from the audience. I think you've done such a thorough job, as you always do, making presentations that, we appreciate the time you took out with us this evening, telling us about the project. And for everyone, we'll have this recorded. So later on, if you wanted to go back and take a look at it, you'll be able to see it. But we've got plenty of information on it. And we really look forward to Matt and Kat. They actually came out and did 2 visits. And the last visit was when they made their presentation in early March. I think it was like March 5th or 6th. And of course, everybody in 2020, and everybody knows what happened about a week or so after that, the country shut down. So they have not been back to West Branch since, and they've accomplished everything by distance and Zoom and doing things. And it's not that they've been a bit readily available whenever we've needed us. And so we're really looking forward to really getting going and digging in and get this project going. Obviously, we need to raise the money for it. And that's where we're at right now. But we look forward to having you coming to Iowa pretty soon. So
absolutely.
We need to. We want to do some shopping on your great Main Street.
There you go.
We haven't gotten to go to the winery. We haven't gotten to go to the coffee shop, which is, Jerry, is a special place in my heart.
Yeah.
Well, the foundation, we've actually moved offices now, Kat. So we're at a different location. So you'll have to come see us. So anyway,
absolutely.
Again, thank you so much. So this is all the time that we have now. I'd like to thank our guest again, Matt Solari and Kat Reinbold from BRC Imagination Arts, for their insight tonight, and also all of the public libraries across Iowa who joined in with us as well. Remember, the Hoover Presidential Library is now open 7 days a week from 9 to 5, and we'd invite you to visit the new temporary exhibit now open called Deliverance, America and the Famine in Soviet Russia, 1921 to 1923. It's a terrific account. And they have done a terrific job with the exhibit on there. And so I really encourage you to come in and take a look at it. It's especially timely with everything that has gone on with Ukraine and Russia and so forth like that. I think you'll really be enlightened on that. So it also features numerous accounts of humanitarian efforts by Herbert Hoover and the ARA as they work to feed 11 million people a day 100 years ago. And don't forget to join us August 5th and 6th for Hoover's Hometown Days in West Branch, and for our next third Thursday program, August 18th, when we'll learn about the presidential first ladies and their knitting skills. It promises to be a captivating program that will keep you in stitches. The Hoover Presidential Foundation staff is ready to assist you with your membership needs or charitable gifts in support of the Hoover campus and museum renovation. And you can learn more about that and even show your support at timelessvaluescampaign.org. On behalf of us all here at the Hoover campus and the participating public libraries, we thank you for joining us and look forward to your next visit on the Hoover campus.